Jesus Christ.
Jesus Christ.
Babaji Krishna.
Babaji Krishna.
Lahiri Mahashaya.
Lahiri Mahashaya.
Swami Sri Yukteswar.
Swami Sri Yukteswar.
And Paramahansa Yogananda.
And Paramahansa Yogananda.
Thank you for bringing us together this morning.
Thank you for bringing us together this morning.
In the light of Christ.
In the light of Christ.
For purification.
For purification.
Radiate this light.
Radiate this light.
Through us.
Through us.
In blessings to all whom we know.
In blessings to all whom we know.
All whom we meet.
All whom we meet.
Festival of Light service will begin at 10 o'clock. In the meantime, we'll have some devotional chanting.
Where are you going, my little one? In hope these empty streets I wend. I've seen a star rise in the east, and I'm looking for a friend. Tooroo-loo-roo-loo-lay, tooroo-loo-roo-loo-lay. Where are you going, good shepherd folk? From a lowly valley we ascend. A wondrous vision sent us here. We're looking for a friend. Tooroo-loo-roo-loo-lay, tooroo-loo-roo-loo-lay. You learned men, where are you going? Our soul's long journey we would end. Therefore we've come to Bethlehem. We're looking for a friend. Tooroo-loo-roo-loo-lay, good people, let me come with you. Perhaps he's just around this bend. But whether near or far, I too have been looking for a friend. Tooroo-loo-roo-loo-lay,
It's such a privilege to share that song, such a poignantly beautiful song that really perfectly paves the way for what we're going to talk about this morning. Diva asked a few of us to share a little bit. We usually tell the story of Christ's birth in some way every year, and it's worth telling every year, certainly. And we usually focus on a few days before and a few days after. And I'd like to talk about years before and even a few generations before. We know that it was a very difficult time on the planet, anywhere, and especially in the Middle East. And there have been a number of seers, mystics throughout the years who've been able to look back through time, and they said that there was this group of people that had this esoteric knowledge that they'd carried down, and that they knew that if they concentrated, if they prayed, if they offered themselves, they could draw an avatar. They could draw that Christ consciousness in human form. And they started that process, and it took generations of attunement and prayer and offering, and then having children with that vibration, and then those children growing up with that tradition. And after a number of generations, Mary was born, and it became clear that that she was going to be the channel for this pure expression of Christ consciousness, for Jesus. And it's easy to look back at that time, and yes, it was so hard, and just on the physical level, so difficult, so cold, and there was no media telling you if somebody was going to invade or what was going on in politics, who was going to attack you next or what was happening. But really, what I feel, my connection to that time, to those people, is that, yes, it was difficult physically, but what were they feeling? Fear, pain, sadness, confusion. Who here feels fear? Pain, sadness, loneliness. Yeah, I'm not just raising my hand. I have that experience at times. And this week has been very poignant for me, tuning into that time and that experience. Just to share a little personally, a very dear person in my life was basically taken away about 9 days ago. And the details aren't that important, but I don't know if I'm going to see them again. And so it's been interesting to tune into that time, those people, those generations reaching for Christ consciousness. And in my own life, to look at each day, it was kind of like a generation. At first, it's very difficult. It was hard to get out of bed and just do what I needed to do that day. And my meditations were basically complaining and apologizing for not having more to offer. But that was the best that I had. But each day, it got a little easier. And after a few days, something interesting happened. Someone said something funny, and I chuckled. And part of me said, "Oh, no. We're sad. We're not chuckling right now." And I thought, "Oh, that's interesting. Actually, no, we are going to chuckle." Because fortunately, I've meditated enough. I know that eternal joy is what's true, is what's lasting, and that all these other things are transient, fortunately. And so I said, okay, well, actually, we are going to chuckle, and we'll laugh as we feel to. Thank you. And so I've laughed. And each day was a little better, a little easier. And then yesterday we had the 8-hour meditation. And it always amazes me how quickly that time can go by and how profound an experience that is. And I approached it with some trepidation because my meditations had been fairly minimal, shall we say. And yet it was so easy to dive in to the stillness, to that time, that period, and just relax, bringing all of myself, all of my experience, and just showing up and offering myself as those people did so many generations ago, offering themselves in the hope of light, of truth, of something pure and meaningful in their lives. And it's beautiful to think about the first people that started that process. They weren't around anymore by the time Jesus came, but they knew it was still important. They had to go through that process of moving that wave of consciousness. And so, for me, 9 days ago, starting the process, just getting out of bed was all I could do. And now, I had this beautiful experience yesterday, and I wouldn't say that I had the deepest, most profound experience of uplifted consciousness that I've ever had, but it was there. It was real. I felt it. It's true, and it's eternal. So I invite all of us to look for what is it in our lives? What can we offer up? What can we take as our next step toward bringing Christ consciousness, as Yogananda said, into ourselves, giving birth within the cradle of our consciousness. So we'll be have some other friends sharing in a moment. There's some readings from a book, The Visions of Therese Neumann. She was a Bavarian stigmatist whom Yogananda met, and he describes that meeting in Autobiography of a Yogi. And she was an extremely blessed soul who had relived the experience of Christ's passion but even had visions from throughout Mary's life and throughout the life of Christ and after his resurrection. And it's really beautiful for me to be able to tune into what was really happening on the physical plane at that time. And just helped me to relate and to see with fresh eyes and connect with that period. And you get a real sense for the struggle people were going through and the doubt. Even right up until the moment of Christ's birth, they don't know what's going to happen. They don't know when he's going to come. They don't know if they're going to find anywhere, if they're just going to have to be out on the street in the cold giving birth. They don't know. But it all works out. And so I invite us to, again, just tune in and to be open to that process and to welcome that Christ consciousness wherever we are, and know that he can come anytime and it will always be right. So, yes, we'll hear from some...
Proved to be too much for Mary and wanted to go by himself. But Mary answered that God would help them. Preparing for the trip ahead, they placed blankets and packs on the small donkey's side, along with other necessities for the journey. The weather was rather cold and rainy, and the paths were rough and rutted. The trip proceeded well on the first day, but they could not reach a place to spend the night. They set up their tents in the open air, in a desolate region near a few trees, and spent the night on blankets they had brought with them. In the early hours of the morning, Mary and Joseph set out. They traveled without interruption until noon. Mary was constantly concerned with preparations for the birth of her expected child. Later that night, Mary and Joseph stopped to rest at a nearby town. Mary and Joseph resumed their journey the next day, tired but willful. After a while, the donkey was too tired to go on, so they stayed at a small village to sleep. As they continued to walk through the night, the donkey began to dream. She dreamed she was carrying a city with gates, towers, and temple domes. She dreamed a child cried in the city, and doves flew all around. She dreamed she was carrying a ship. It rocked like a cradle, it shone like the moon. She dreamed she was carrying a fountain. Its water splashed and sang like a child's laughter, and a garden sprang from the desert sand all around. She dreamed she was carrying a rose, as soft as a mother's touch and as sweet as the sleep of a baby. Then she dreamed she was carrying a lady full of heaven. They had come to a town, but only the village dogs ran to greet them.
Bethlehem, at that time, had only about 1,100 inhabitants. The houses were like those of Jerusalem, flat-roofed and basic. They were built with rectangular, narrow windows, without glass, and covered with wooden shutters and simple cloth curtains. The street was finished with large stones and was thus very rough. Joseph went into the house on the right side of the street, while Mary waited with the donkey. Soon he would come out, and with a troubled expression, he would tell Mary the bad news, that they could not spend the night there. They went a few houses further, and Joseph asked at an inn. He was informed that there was no rooms left, and very disturbed, he went back to Mary, who tried to reassure him. They tried farther down the street, but again without success. They tried asking at a house from which Joseph had descended, and in which he was supposed to register at. But there was such a crowd, he decided to put off his registration until the following day. But Mary insisted on today, since her time was drawing near. Accordingly, they waited between two houses until the house was less crowded, and then registered. Meantime, however, it had become very dark and grew colder by the minute. Finally, Joseph asked lodging of a man who was standing on a staircase nearby. The man was friendly, but answered that he had no room left. He directed them to the south city gate and told them that if they passed through the gate and travel a short distance along the road, they would find a small stable in which he told them they could spend the night. Standing under the city gate, Joseph lit a lantern he had brought along. The two went ahead on foot, Mary beside Joseph, resting on a donkey. They went for a few hundred feet along the street, heading south before branching off on a footpath to the right, leading to the stable a little ways from the road. Joseph pushed open the small wooden door, and together they entered the small stable. How miserable it all was. It was only a place for cattle. There was straw laying all around. The floor was scattered with dirt and manure from the cattle, and it was bitterly cold. All of this was awful when you consider Mary's condition, but the good man, Joseph, started cleaning up immediately and putting things in order.
Jesus Christ is born this day. Alleluia. Born to drive our night away. Alleluia. Joy on the mountains, joy in the valleys, joy to the nations, Christ has come. Jesus Christ is born this day. Alleluia. Born to drive our night away. Alleluia. Christ has come. Joy, joy, joy in the valleys, joy to the nations, Christ has come. Jesus Christ is born this day. Alleluia. Born to drive our night away. Alleluia. Joy on the mountains, joy in the valleys, joy to the nations, Christ has come. Joy on the mountains, joy in the valleys, joy to the nations, Christ has come.
After resting in the stable, she rose to her knees and crossed her hands over her heart. Around an hour later, around midnight, the divine child was born without any complications. Joseph prepared a crib with straw and reeds to make it softer. Mary swaddled the divine child, wrapped him in a blanket, and laid him down. Then they began to worship the child, one on each side. With intertwined fingers, Joseph knelt and prayed for and to the divine incarnation before him. Mary crossed her arms over her heart and rejoiced in her miraculous child. The sky turned bright and luminous, with countless stars all shining their brightest on the sacred occasion. Half an hour to the south laid a small hut surrounded by rocky hills. There 8 shepherds passed the night, lying on reeds. There were also 13 white and brown sheep, which were the shepherds' favorites, as well as 2 dogs. Suddenly there was a blinding light. Everyone in the hut was frightened, and the shepherds began looking out to see what caused this apparition. About 10 feet away and 10 feet in the air, on a luminous cloud, was an archangel, in the glowing form of a young man dressed in a radiant white robe with hair falling down both sides of his head, whose light illuminated the entire area. His left hand lay on his heart, and his right was raised heavenward. He spoke to the shepherds in their own language, calming them, his voice clear, friendly, and solemn in the night. "Fear not, for behold, I bring you tidings of great joy, which shall be to all people. For unto you is born this day in the city of David a Savior, which is Christ the Lord." He pointed with his right hand off towards Bethlehem. When he finished speaking, a legion of angels appeared around him in a similar form and on a luminous cloud. They repeated a magnificent song 6 times. "Glory to God in the highest, and on earth peace and goodwill toward men." Then the entire heavenly apparition disappeared. The shepherds who had watched in awe now spoke among themselves. Then all left in the direction of Bethlehem. The pet sheep and their dogs ran after them. The stable in which the Redeemer had been born belonged to the master of these shepherds, and they hoped to find the newborn there. Their hopes raised when from the road they saw a light coming from the stable window.
This next song is the Christmas mystery, and we'll ask that you join along with
Long ago there was
and he was an avatar, and he brought the light of God into this world with his presence 2,000 years ago. But while it's a unique story, because every avatar story, every person's story is unique, it's not unique in the sense that God only came once. God is trying to come all the time. A friend of mine said at one point, I think God's trying to tell me something. And somebody near them said, God's always trying to tell us something. The question is, are we listening? The presence of God is always trying to fill our hearts with wisdom and understanding, with joy and with love. It's always there, and we don't know how to find it. We don't know how to turn toward it. We don't know how to open to it and live in a more expanded experience of ourselves. And so we find ourselves imprisoned by pain, by sorrow, by loss, by resentments, by all the things that can come in, and we don't know how to get out of it. And the presence of an avatar, the coming of these masters and these great saints help us remember what it's like, and then they share with us teachings that help us remember how to find our way back out. And that's the Christmas story. So we'll do a little bit of chanting, we'll do a little bit of meditation and reading, but let's do it with this in mind. Let's feel ourselves open to the awakening consciousness inside that's always trying to be born inside our hearts and inside our minds and inside our souls. So sit up straight, feel for the joy that comes even in the longing for light. Vieni, vieni, Gesù, vieni, 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 Gesù, vieni, 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 vieni. And this next chant we'll take into meditation. It's very simple. Again, you don't need your chant book. It's joy, joy, joy. Ever new joy, 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 ever new joy, 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 joy. Ever new joy, 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 joy. Ever new joy, 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 joy. Ever joy, joy, ever new joy, 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 ever new joy, 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 ever new joy, 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 ever new joy, 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 ever new joy, 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 ever new joy, 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 ever new joy, 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 ever new joy, joy, joy.
Our weekly readings are taken from Rays of the One Light, Commentaries on the Bible and the Bhagavad Gita by Swami Kriyananda. This is the 52nd Sunday of the year. The Divine Ascension. Truth is one and eternal. Realize oneness with it in your deathless self within. The following commentary is based on the teachings of Paramhansa Yogananda. In the Gospel of St. John, chapter 14, we read, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No man cometh unto the Father but by me. What is this I, when spoken by a master who has conquered every vestige of ego consciousness? Therein lies the mystery of the true scriptural teaching. That I that is no I, does it even exist? In what way is it different from the consciousness that animates other human beings? Jesus was not saying, look at me, don't look at other masters. He was saying, rather, look at the divine self that is the essence of who you are, your very self. You are that I. No man cometh unto the divine consciousness except by first recognizing his own intrinsic divinity, hidden behind his delusive ego. The Bhagavad Gita, in the 4th chapter, states, O son of Pritha, Arjuna, in whatever way people accept me, in that same way do I appear to them. For all men, in some way, pursue the path to me. Meditate on the divine incarnations. Their lives and the consciousness animating them will be your stairway to the infinite. Thus, through Holy Scripture, God has spoken to mankind. Om, Om, Om.
Good morning, everyone, and happy Merry Christmas Eve. Thank you all for coming this morning. It's a very important topic this morning. Oops. As Jacob was sharing, I was remembering a little vignette that happened to me Thursday late morning as I was driving out to Laurelwood. We drive, many of you know, we drive back and forth a lot. Many of you do also from Laurelwood. And you can drive through many different microclimates as you're driving to Laurelwood. As I left the community, I loaded my car with all the cookies I made. We were having our Laurelwood party Thursday night. Sunny, beautiful day. I was like thinking, oh, the world is my oyster. And then as I'm driving, I hit Beaverton. The fog just starts to get really thick. And I pass the city, marker, and I'm in the country. And the fog is just getting thicker and thicker. And I'm starting to get a little anxious because that's one of my fears driving, that it's foggy or dark and I can't see. I'm out of control, And so I'm driving and the thoughts are coming up, well, I think I need to turn around. I go, but I have these cookies. I need to turn around, but I have these cookies. What do I do? And I just felt myself, shoulders coming up, and I wasn't breathing. I'm like, ah. And then I was just thinking of the topics this Sunday and of Christ, of course. I was thinking, where is my high-mindedness? Where is my All week I've been calling it high remembrance. I wasn't remembering Christ. I wasn't remembering to breathe. I wasn't remembering my yoga to open my heart. And finally I was like, okay, roll those shoulders back. Breathe from the belly, relax. And at that moment, it's like the sky just opened up, blue sky all of a sudden, and bright light and sunshine. And it was like Christ was saying, gosh, ye of little faith here. Come on. And I was so grateful. And then the whole way to Laurelwood, I was like, thank you, Master. Thank you, Christ. I mean, the gratitude just couldn't stop, and it was just such a wonderful reminder of how quickly we close down. Something happens, as Jacob says, whether small or big, as he shared. Something happens, and what happens? We close down, and we forget. We forget to remember. We forget that Christ is eternal. He came, the Masters came to remind us through all of this. The world is going to take us up and down and all around and through the fog and through the sunshine, and to not get excited when it's really sunny or when it's really foggy, and to try and stay in our yoga. A friend of mine from back east doesn't really know what I'm doing, but she'll always remind me, are you in your yoga? Am I? And I think that's a really good reminder, because yoga is what? It means union. It doesn't mean pretzel pose. It's union, right? We know that with the divine, with that high remembrance, with that high-mindedness, those qualities that the Masters come and remind us. Remember that eternal joy. Remember that eternal love through it all. And all these things, the world is just, as Yogananda would say, it's here for our entertainment and education. But how little of us, how few of us are entertained. We get so caught in it. The last couple of nights we've been visiting a friend, a dear friend in the hospital. And the night before last, her husband was there. And they've been married over 20 years. And there they were, just so beautifully holding each other's hands. And, all the things that they had been through, all the material gains and losses, none of those things mattered. But watching them just look into each other's eyes, they were just seeing that eternal love. Their eyes were depthless, They were holding on to that eternal bond. That's what the Masters come. They go, hold on to this eternal bond. This movie will change. This, it's this world. It's what it will bring us. Don't get overexcited. Don't get underexcited. Any of those things. But remember that love. Remember that high-remindedness. And as everyone else was sharing this morning, the birth of Jesus, it's symbolic not only of the birth of that tiny form many years ago, but of that birth of what? Of divine awareness in all of us. The I, the big S, the capital S, of who we really are. And just as a tiny baby needs to be fed and taken care of when they're a baby, so us too, when we first come to the path, we need to nurture that. We need to come together with people who support us in our journey. But even more so as we continue to grow deeper in the path, we need that support as much as anything. So the reminder to come together again. And yesterday also, just the 8-hour period of worship helps you to remember, helps you to tune in to something much, much deeper. So in this season, when they say that when a Master comes into the world, you could feel his presence more deeply, let's carry that feeling with us every day. Every day we could be born anew in his consciousness, which is of love, joy, peace. We all know those qualities, and we've touched into them. We all had in our own experience, whether driving to Laurelwood in the fog and finally seeing the light, or whether someone just saying a kind word to us, or making us laugh, or smiling. Let's remember to keep offering that to each other and take this renewed spirit with us into the new year. It's a wonderful moment also to know that we'll be turning the calendar, and what we set now will be in place for us in the coming year. So many blessings to all of you. We wish you all a Merry Christmas. We are so grateful to be sharing this journey with all of you, and may we all rise to the highest we can together. So, blessings.
This is where the order of service changes again. Everybody found on their chair an envelope. It's a place for your offering. And what we'd like to do is we'd like to have you place your offering into that envelope and then just hold on to it for now. So why don't you sit up straight, take out whatever you'd like to offer. Visualize it as a gesture from your heart to the heart of life itself, for all the blessings that you've received, for your connection with God, as an awakening consciousness inside of yourself that keeps you connected with joy, keeps you connected with love through all the ups and downs of life, keeps your heart open and expanded, your vitality renewed. And feel this gesture, this offering, as a way that you can help others to be touched by the same experience. For at the end of the day, that is Christmas, that is the presence of Christ and the gift of Christ. We'll do our festival of light now. So hold on to that, because when we reach the point of blessing in the festival, what we're going to have you do is we're going to have you bring that up, and there will be candles lit. You can come up and take a candle and your offering, place them on the altar here, around the creche on this table, and then come to us for your blessing. So it'll be a chance to just do a personal and private offering of your gift to Christmas. On this light as a symbol of God's love. A prayer of love went up from earth and you responded. A ray of your light flashed out from the heart of infinity, burst downward through night skies of consciousness, and was born on earth for the redemption of mankind in human form. Many times has that light descended, drawn to earth by the call of aspiring love. Your chosen people have always been those of every race and nation who with deep love chose thee. Please pray with me. O Lord, with all my heart,
with all my heart,
with all my mind,
with all my mind,
with all my soul,
with all my soul,
and with all my strength,
and with all my strength,
I choose thy love.
I choose thy love.
I choose only thee.
I choose only thee.
The infinite Christ consciousness, the only begotten, has come down anew to earth for the salvation of mankind. When we need you, Lord, our beloved, you descend. Our human griefs your love alone can mend. By proud indifference unaffected, though eternally rejected, you remain our friend.
Long we fear to
And standing now and chanting Om, let's offer this light into the world.
nature sing, and heaven
Christ.
Jesus Christ.
Babaji Krishna.
Babaji Krishna.
Lahiri Mahashaya.
Lahiri Mahashaya.
Swami Sri Yukteswar.
Swami Sri Yukteswar.
And Paramahamsa Yogananda.
And Paramahamsa Yogananda.
Saints of all religions.
Saints of all religions.
We joyfully bow before you all.
We joyfully bow before you all.
Beloved Christ.
Beloved Christ.
We thank you for your presence.
We thank you for your presence.
In our lives and in this world.
In our lives and in this world.
May thy love shine forever.
May thy love shine forever.
On the sanctuary of our devotion.
On the sanctuary of our devotion.
And may we be able.
And may we be able.
To awaken thy love.
To awaken thy love.
In all hearts.
In all hearts.
We are thine.
We are thine.
Be thou ours.
Be thou ours.
Om. Peace.
Peace.
Amen.
Amen.
We have a brief announcement.